fade to me in three, two, one. Good morning, good afternoon, and good whatever time it is. Welcome to another episode of Trevantine, the podcast in which you get to hear the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of an 18-year-old senior in high school being affected by the coronavirus. In this podcast, we have three different segments. One, where we talk about how corona is impacting us. Two, the headlines, and three, what I'm doing for today. So on the first segment on how corona is impacting us, I have my pal Ashton Overby in a Zoom call with me. Ashton, how are you doing today?
Doing good. It's a little chilly out, but I try and sit out here and enjoy the backyard. Got a nice expanse of a forest behind here, so it's life is much slower now than it ever has been, but trying to enjoy it when I can.
There you go. There you go. Would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm Ashton Overby. I'm a junior at Liberty North High School. Don't do a whole lot other than just kind of the average schoolwork, work at a rock climbing gym. So I'm very much unemployed right now. And just kind of, I work for the newspaper. So I'm doing journalism with Trevor also. So that's it's fun stuff.
Nice. So how has this whole corona thing impacted you besides like not going to school and not going to work?
Um, for me, a lot of it is, um, I mean, first and foremost, the fact of being unemployed um, is a different animal. Just because I'm not like a workaholic or anything, but I do value work a lot, and I like where I work, and so it was always a good time. Not being able to do that has been interesting, and I've found out that I do not really know what to do with myself when I'm not working. I have a couple of hobbies, uh, but life is much slower, which is a good thing. But also, I'm a pretty fast paced person. Um, in terms of I just like to fill my schedule. But I've had a lot of time to work in my gardens and read a lot, which has been good. But the coronavirus is definitely impacting me mostly in just trying to kind of reevaluate. Okay, now what are in this new, I guess, structure of life? What do my necessities need to be? How should I plan my days? What do I need to do?
So what have you been reading?
Um, for school, I am reading Darwin on Origin of Species is what I'm reading right now. And then the Rubaiyat of Omar Ilkhanate is a Persian environmentally inspired poetry collection that I'm also reading. It was written about 1100 AD. And that has been very interesting. And then I also just started a book. It is called. I'm taking a little break from philosophy just because I was reading a lot of it and I needed a little bit of variety. So I started reading a historical novel. It is called "The Road to 1914: The War That Ended Peace," and it is pretty much just about the political climate of Europe from 1900 to the start of World War I in 1914.
Nice. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's a good book.
Huh. So you mentioned your schedule changing a little bit. What's your schedule looking like now?
Yeah, so without working, I am at the house pretty much all day. I mean, as we should be, leaving to go, support small businesses, especially Hammerhand Coffee here and there. And then besides that, I'm really just working on school from about 8:30 in the morning to usually 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon. Just trying to crank out a lot of big projects, AP exam reviews, newspapers, stuff like that. So school is definitely the big bulk of my days. Then usually just doing some good reading, listening to music, playing with my cat, my dog, um, when I'm not doing anything.
Do you see your added free time as like a benefit or like kind of a downside since you're not filling your time like you used to?
Um, I think it has definitely been kind of a benefit in disguise. At first, it was definitely kind of a downer. Um, I've obviously making money isn't like a huge priority for me. I mean, it's something we all have to do. But it was always something that kind of occupied my time, um, and kept me kind of doing something new, keeping my mind occupied. Uh, so it was at first it was kind of a sad thing having a bunch of extra free time, but at the same time I've been much more intentional with academics, with uh, you know I'm definitely reading. I feel like I read more than the average high schooler does to begin with, but I'm definitely reading much more now. Um, Usually reading like a book a week or something like that, which is pretty outrageous for the size of books I tend to read. Um, and then I've been able to work a lot in my gardens, which is really nice and relaxing. So at first it was definitely kind of a sad thing, but it has turned into a much more joyous thing as time has kind of progressed.
How long do you see this lasting for?
Well, in the United States, it's a little hard to say, just because we have a very, very large country. And if you look at Europe, they're obviously they have rural areas, but their population scattering and placement is pretty even across the whole country. With us, that is not the case. You have millions and millions of people in a single city up in New York, and then you have you know a 16th of that population in the entire state of Wyoming. So that is kind of interesting. So I think it'll look different across the country. But for where we are here in the Midwest, I saw that a bunch of governors in the Midwest are kind of making a coalition to try and reopen their states. Uh, I think that is kind of foolish for Missouri, since we have Kansas City where we are, and then St. Louis, two very big cities. Um, and Missouri does have the potential to be a hotspot. So I think people are definitely eager to open the country back up, to not feel the economic effects, and they are putting at risk much more people than we need to. Um, in a perfect world, I think this could last easily until kind of the beginning ish of June, and then once it gets hot, I see it dying down. And then I think it is very feasible to think that we would have, if they try and reopen the country too soon, we could have a second wave immediately, or we could go the summer, kind of slowly reopen, and then come September, October, have a spike back up when the temperatures drop down a little bit more, and the virus kind of reintroduce itself in mass until we have a vaccine. So it's hard to say, but there are definitely a bunch of different voices trying to say when is the proper time to kind of reopen the country. Um, but I could definitely see us kind of half reopening over the summer. Obviously, still being very cautious and having businesses not have sit-in stuff and things of that nature. But I could see it closing back down um, come fall time.
Mm. Now, does that like not upset you, or is it just kind of like that's the way it is? We have to do it.
Um, it is upsetting to think about school and to think about work and some of the different things that I wanted to do this summer. I travel a lot during my summers, and so that's kind of a bummer. Um, but at the same time, if you think about it, I am one out of billions of people, um, and the world does not revolve around me. It revolves around everybody, and to protect the most amount of people, I think it would be very selfish to say, oh, this is so stupid. I'm so upset. Why are people not seeing what I'm going through because of this? And it's like, man, people are dying. People are dying in the thousands, and there are now over 2 million cases in worldwide. And it's just like, you're going to have to do what you have to do to try and reopen the country in the world really as soon as possible. And so staying put now will help us later on down the road rather than trying to eagerly open up everything and then just kind of feel it come back and bite us in the butt pretty quick.
I like that take. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. Um, you mentioned doing a lot of schoolwork in your free time. Do you see these online AP tests and online school just like as a joke, or are you still taking it pretty seriously?
Um, I mean, I always take my academics pretty seriously. I feel like just because where I want to go to college and things of that nature. But it is definitely a much slower and much more settled pace. School is much more mediocre. I mean, it's not nearly as hard as it was um, in some respects, but in other respects, it is much harder because if you think about, collaboration, group projects, talking to your teachers, having questions, that is much harder. So the social aspect of academia has been much harder, but the actual academic part has been a little bit easier. And then I think, yeah, that's all. Sorry.
Would you say you've put less or more effort into your schoolwork?
I have probably put. I don't know, man. There are some classes where I have put more effort, but there are also other classes where it's like, I'm not doing a whole lot. Um, so it's really dependent on the class. Um, but overall, I'm probably putting in the same amount of effort. The only difference is just the workload is much lighter, so I don't have to give as much effort as I did.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've been putting a lot of effort in my schoolwork. Um, so in the last podcast I had you on, we talked about minimalism and that lifestyle. Would you say your minimalistic lifestyle kind of has aided you into this process of self quarantine and it's not going out as much?
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword though, because if I'm stuck at home, I don't really have a whole lot of things. That is kind of the nature of minimalism. So I don't have a whole lot of stuff to distract me from being home all the time. But at the same time, the things I do have to distract me are very meaningful to me, and so I don't feel like I'm wasting my days, which has been very very helpful. I've probably been on my phone less now than I ever was before, just because I have I'm sitting here and I would feel bad if I was scrolling through Instagram or spending time texting people or watching YouTube for hours and hours in a day when that's what a lot of people are doing. And so to try and get the most out of my days, I've definitely kind of recognized the things that I do have, which mainly is books, my garden, my family, um, and just some other things and music, stuff like that. And I've definitely spent a lot more time doing those things, which do bring a lot more value to my days than sitting on technology or anything like that. So it's hard because I don't have a large diversity of what I do or what I have to do at least. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not, really missing out on anything, and my days still have great value to me. I'm not crazy, and I'm not saying that I, don't watch Netflix or like I've seen Tiger King, great documentary series, so funny, but at the same time, I'm still um, staying off my phone less, which I thought was kind of funny because I feel like everybody else is definitely on technology more just because it's an easy thing to have around and to distract your days. So I think I mean, overall been a benefit. Some days are a little monotonous just because I've been doing very much the same thing. So yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I know I've been on my phone way too much. What'd you think of Tiger King?
Um, it was good. Um, Americans we often think that we're pretty messed up and like we've done some pretty bad stuff in our lives, But everybody needs to have a point where they're like, at least I haven't gotten that bad. And that's definitely what that documentary series has done, you know. But at the same time, it is the definition of America. And the fact of like, yeah, if you want to have 227 tigers live in the middle of Oklahoma and do meth, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I do hate Carol Baskin.
Did she kill her husband?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Without a doubt. I don't think he's in the septic tank though. I think she fed him to the tiger.
Yeah, I mean, too much. I don't say there's a lot of evidence, but the way they framed it in the show was just too obvious, man.
Yeah, it was too obvious, and she just like, for having considered, you know, the love of your life go missing and never show up, she did not care at all.
She just
Went
on
showed
and married
no
someone.
like, yeah, she did not exemplify any sort of sadness, any sort of grief at all, which I think is much more telling than the evidence that they showed, for the fact that she did kill him. Just the fact that she really just did not show that she cared at all.
Do you think the trial is going to continue on, or do you think what do you think is going to happen in the past for anyone regarding the show or involved in the show?
I don't know. I heard the homicide case for Howard did open back up as a result, but I don't know what's going to happen with like Joe or anything like that. It'll be.
Yeah. One interesting thing is I saw somewhere that, well, it was like a meme, but like Trump literally, I mean, he has the power to pardon him.
Right. I did see a meme about that. It was like a mock headline, and it was like Donald Trump pardons Joe Exotic from jail, and I was like, that's hilarious.
Could you see that happening?
I mean, if his campaign gets really desperate, maybe.
Speaking about Trump, do you think the Trump administration's doing enough for this whole Corona stuff?
The coronavirus task force is a joke.
Ooh, why do you say that?
They don't care about science. You know, putting Mike Pence in charge of the coronavirus epidemic is foolish. We saw how he handled the AIDS outbreak in the state of Indiana, and he did nothing, which is very telling. Oh, here comes my cat. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, with what he said about Fauci, I think Anthony Fauci is the only person who has been kind of a voice of reason and knowledge throughout all of this. And the fact that he's asking for him to be fired is just, I mean, completely foolish.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, the whole, they're butting heads too much, man.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like, it's like he said, oh no, he said this and he said that, and everyone's just saying Trump's saying something, Fauci's saying something, the media is saying something, the CDC is saying something else, and so it's just like, okay, who do we listen to? Because everyone's saying something different here.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the media's role is like overextending?
I think the media is definitely making people more fearful than they need to be. But at the same time, you do have to report, you know, how many people are dying. You do have to report how many people are contracting coronavirus, just because people do need to know, hey, this is something that is serious and something that we need to take heed of, so that, you know, we don't ruin a bunch of stuff. But at the same time, I think a lot of them are overplaying it a little bit and are just making people afraid and making people irrational. And, you know, like the idea of, because of the media coverage, people are going out and stockpiling guns and ammo. That is ridiculous. You know, that makes me kind of nervous, just because it's like, all right, now we have more guns in circulation. That's great. And it's like, why are people stockpiling guns? Why do they feel the need to do that? And so that's, I don't know. I think the media is doing an adequate job. They're covering the things that they need to, but I think they're also instilling much more fear in people than they need to. I think it's instilling fear when they need to just be a voice of logic.
Mm-hmm. Would you say the whole media polarization when it comes to politics is definitely driving this, um, I guess, push for certain information to be released?
Yeah, yeah. You definitely have, CNN covering one aspect, and which is more the scientific aspect, and also bashing on, oh, we're not doing enough here or enough here or enough here, and then you have Fox saying, oh, Trump is doing great here and amazing here and doing everything so well, and the country needs to listen to him, and oh, look, the stimulus checks and all this, and it's very polarized.
What do you
But I
think
also
of
think
what?
oh, it's also funny just because you know everyone hates on Bernie Sanders, but the stimulus checks are a socialist ideology. So they say, oh, we hate socialism. Socialism isn't for America. And then they're like, oh yeah, Trump is giving out, $1,200 to everyone in the country. That's amazing. That's a purely socialist idea.
Do you think it's different in a circumstance like this?
I do. I think there needs to be more grace given, and the stimulus checks, I think it's great. I don't think they gave enough money to people. But at the same time, it's just ironic. And I think that, when it's President Trump, giving socialist benefits, then it's fine. But if it's a, socialist giving socialist benefits, that's not okay. Because in pure capitalist ideology, you say, oh, you believe 100% in the economy, and you say, oh, well, the economy will bounce back. It'll do its thing. It'll be what it needs to be. And if some people go out of business, so be it. Sink or swim.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because especially right after Bernie went out of the running, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's like kind of ironic, you know. So in your free time, you mentioned gardening a little bit. How's that been?
It's great. I seeded all of my plants. I have kind of my smaller gardens, which I have lots of carrots, radishes, potatoes, Swiss chard, romaine, butter lettuce, and kale. And then I have a larger plot, which you have to cross a bridge over a stream to get to, that has kind of all of my wheat.
Wheat?
Yes, I'm growing wheat. I want to make bread.
Huh. Dude, so it sounds like you're pretty set for this apocalyptic scenario coming up, huh?
I guess that wasn't the intention, but if it came to it, I guess I'd be all right.
And that's what you're doing in college, right? Ag school?
No, I thought about that for a long time. I thought about going and doing agriculture and also doing environmental policy for a long time. But in the past little bit, I've definitely been drawn more to going through and doing philosophy and becoming a philosophy professor.
Right on. Nice. Definitely you're known for your photography also, especially with all your work in the newspaper. How has Corona halted that?
It sucks. It is so hard. I don't think I'm known that much for my photography, but I appreciate the compliment. But it has been very hard because I'm very limited on what I can take pictures of, and there are not a lot of resources I can acquire for pictures in terms of material to make any sort of political commentary, things of that nature. On the newspaper, I'd be like, I'd be talking to people and say, hey, can I borrow a flag for this? Hey, can I borrow a gun for this? Can I borrow whatever it may be? And that's that's kind of stopped. You can't really go and pick up something from your friend's house anymore. That's much harder. but at the same time, it's posed a challenge, but a challenge that I'm definitely up to. A couple of weeks ago for the April issue, for the back cover, I was going to take a picture of at Liberty Hospital. They have a drive-through testing site, and I went up there and I was asking if I could. I showed how to press past everything and my camera. I was like, hey, can I get a couple of interviews from you guys and take a pictures of the drive-through test site? And they were like, no, we're not allowing that. And I was like, well, this is a public place, isn't it? I mean, obviously you could decline an interview, but I should be able to take pictures in a public a public service, right? And they were like, no, we're not allowing that. I was like, okay. So I went up on a hill across the street, grabbed my telephoto lens, and snapped a couple pictures that way.
There you go.
And so be it. If you have to do a little bit of investigative, that's okay. So it's been hard, but a challenge nonetheless that is overcome. That can be overcome. Sorry, if you kind of just think about it for a little while.
Yeah, that's something that the people in the Boston Globe Zoom interview was talking about.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
The Boston Globe.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. They're definitely much more centered on sports photography, which I know is more of your forte than it is mine. I do much more kind of political photography and social commentary for the paper. I do sports stuff when I have to, but it is definitely not my favorite form. So I did learn a lot because I'm not super strong in sports photography. But when they were talking about the coronavirus stuff, I thought it was very insightful in terms of how to shoot around that, how to just kind of go all in and just get the pictures that you need to, as long as you're making sure you're not putting anyone at risk.
Long lenses, man.
Long lenses. When they said that, I was like, yep, I've had to do that a couple of times.
Well, Ashton, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. I got to get you on here soon. I want to get one with Will to talk about philosophy, so maybe you can hop on with that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, once again, dude, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy academic day.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime, man.
All right, man. Well, you stay safe. Keep washing your hands, dude.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
See ya.
All right, bye.
And that was the fantastic Mr. Ashton Overby. Obviously one of my journalism friends, someone that you can just talk to whenever, and especially when it comes to like philosophical needs and just needs. He'll give you philosophy and his way of thinking on just about anything. I find most fascinating about him is he has two different philosophies that I like to follow. Well, I don't really follow, but I like to keep up on, and that's one, minimalism. So that's just the idea of only having the essential items that you need. Like his room is, maybe I shouldn't be describing his room, but his room is like just basic everything you need. And two is just working for what you want and doing everything yourself. So like, for example, instead of sending out his film, like he shoots film like me. Like, these are all film cameras in my stand. Instead of sending out his film to like a lab where he gets this like lab like developed, they develop it oh my gosh, I can't speak. They develop it and then they'll send it back with either the negatives or like the prints or whatever. He develops it himself. Him and I actually developed 2 rolls together, and that was super interesting, that whole process. But like, he has everything built himself. He built his own desk. He built his dark room. His dark room's actually just this closet with like a blackout curtain, so that's awesome to see. And it's just really cool and fascinating to see people that have that mentality. Hardworking individualism is probably the best way I can describe Ashton. And I want to talk about philosophy with him and Will, so maybe in the future coming up, because they definitely have interesting takes on life that might be different than the other man. I think one thing I really want to adopt from him is his reading habits. And I'm taking a kind of a detox from social media today. I think I'm just gonna put my phone in a drawer and only answer to text and like important stuff like emails. Obviously I'll watch like whatever YouTube video my teachers have assigned, but besides that, I don't think I'm gonna get on TikTok. I don't think I'm gonna get on Instagram or Snapchat today. I might send out my streaks or whatever. I don't send streaks personally, but I'll send out all my messages to everyone so we don't lose my streak. But besides that, I think today is a great day to detox. Enjoy life, watch some movies maybe, and then just keep on rolling with what I've been doing. So yeah, that was today's segment on how Corona has been influencing and impacting us. Now let's get to today's headlines. Today's headlines, I'm not gonna lie, I took a little peek, look a little promising, with the first one being that Trump says governors can reopen sooner than May 1st. Fantastic news to hear, says President Trump told the nation's governors on Thursday that they could begin reopening businesses, restaurants, and other elements of daily lives by May 1st or earlier if they wanted to, abandoning his threat to use what he had claimed was absolute authority to impose his own will on them. The president released a set of non-binding guidelines that envisioned a slow return to work and school over the next few weeks or months based on each state's conditions. The guidelines are in effect guarantee that any restoration of American society will take place on patchwork basis rather than a one-size-fits-all prescription. Fantastic idea. Basically, he's just going to have each state analyze what their situation's like and then put it into effect, which is fantastic and great idea. It says we are not opening all at once, but we are taking one careful step at a time, Mr. Trump told reporters during a briefing in the White House. In states judged by doing well enough to enter the first phase, but he has different phases of opening up the country and reopening up the country. It says people would still be urged to avoid socialization in groups more than 10. So that means if you have a group of 9.5 people, bam, you are good to go. Employers would be asked to encourage telework, and schools would remain closed, but some large venues, including restaurants, movie theaters, sporting venues, and places of worship, would still be allowed to operate under strict physical social distancing protocols. Elective surgeries could resume. Gyms would reopen as long as they maintain social distancing. Bars would remain closed. Interesting take, because I feel like with the gym, especially the Norterra, the place I work out at, that's tough to like have social distancing because you can't guess where everyone's going to go. It's a smaller gym. How are you going to maintain clean racks, clean equipment? It's expected that you wipe down everything, but it's interesting take. Bars remaining closed is another interesting one. I work at Johnny's Jazz Bar and Grill, and at that place, it's a bar, obviously. It's also a restaurant. So how does that going to work? It's also in a movie theater. So who knows? It's interesting to see. I don't think Missouri is being hit as hard as like other states like New York, California are, but we'll find out what happens when it happens. In the second phase, schools could reopen and people would be advised to avoid social gatherings more than 50 people. By the third phase, there'd be no evidence of a resurgence of the infections. Would be able to resume unrestricted staffing of work sites. Visits to hospitals and nursing homes could resume. Large venues could operate under limited social distancing protocols, and bars could reopen with increased standing room. That's all good to hear. 3 phases. Will they work? Will they happen? We don't know yet. It's still kind of in process. I know a lot of states want to reopen. Trump wants to reopen our economy, but like Ashton was saying, I don't know if it's quite time, bro, because if we open too soon, we'll have another jump. If we don't open soon enough, people are going to go crazy. I'm already going crazy, bro, but it happens. Next headline we have is China's economy shrinks, ending in nearly half a century of continuous growth. It said Chinese officials said on Friday that the world's second largest economy has shrunk in the first 3 months of the year, ending a streak of the untrammeled growth that survived the Tiananmen Square crackdown, the SARS epidemic, and the global financial crisis. Obviously, 3 big events that happened in China and happened, I guess, globally that haven't stunted growth until now. And that's weirdly to say. I mean, there's 22, no, not 22. There's a huge number of unemployed people in the United States, so I couldn't imagine what it's like in China. It says now China is trying to restart a $14 trillion economy, an effort that can give the rest of the world a much-needed shot in the arm. Next headline we have is that the Census Bureau workers may help the CDC with contact tracing. It says the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, plan to hire hundreds of contact tracers who locate those who have been exposed to the coronavirus as part of Donald Trump's plan to push to reopen the economy, a top government official said. The CDC would also have discussion of diverting 25,000 Census Bureau workers to contract tracing in the coming weeks and months. Interesting plan. I want to see how that plays out. We'll find out in the next couple of days. Next item we have is that the $349 billion lending program for small businesses has run out of funds. The program, called the Paycheck Protection Program, was in limbo as Small Business Administration said on Thursday that it had run out of money. Millions of businesses were unable to apply for loans while Congress struggled to reach a deal to replenish the funds. Congress initially allowed $349 billion for the program, which intended to provide loans of businesses with 500 employees or fewer, but the money quickly went, with more than 1.4 million loans approved as of Wednesday evening. Obviously, there's more small businesses than there will be allowed to have money for, so only allocating that much money is an interesting take to see. Next headline we have is 22 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the last 4 weeks. That was that number I was looking for, but I didn't want to make up because I thought I was thinking of the Chinese phones that were missing. But 22 million Americans filed for unemployment in the last 4 weeks. Holy cow. It was like 1.6 the other day. 22 million now. Crazy. Next headline we have is protests across the U.S. signal growing opposition for governor's restrictions. Fed up with the broad restrictions of American life and in some cases encouraged by anti-government activists on the right, thousands of protesters have taken the streets across the country to urge governors to reopen businesses, relax strict rules, and health officials have said to save necessary lives. Completely dumb idea. I don't know why you're doing this, guys, because you're not going to stop it. If you go out and then spread more corona, it's going to be even worse. So just chill out at home, watch some Tiger King, watch some Trevantine, and then just enjoy life with all this free time. It doesn't mean you have to go wild, go ranting about because you don't have the ability to go out anymore. I think that's completely ridiculous. New Orleans mayor says they don't expect a big sporting event or music festival until 2021. Intriguing to see, especially in New Orleans, pretty packed place whenever it comes to like time of Mardi Gras or just other sporting events like Pelican games or even like the Super Bowl. It's intriguing to see. Next one is we have 3 states, Florida, Michigan, and Wisconsin, or 4 states, Wisconsin, Idaho, and other states are looking to lift orders. With Donald Trump's phasing plan, that might actually happen pretty sooner, might happen sooner than later. Scientists see risk in the White House guidelines for reopening the states. Of course, when you have a plan that I don't think really was approved by the government, that's going to happen. And the last headline we have is kind of a good one, and one to end on a good note. It says the stocks jump as investors rally behind the idea of reopening the economy. The S&P 500 rose about 2% in early trading, and the European markets were also trading 3 to 4 points or percent higher than the upbeat day after an upbeat day in Asia. Good thing to hear. Of course, we want the economy re-stimulated, but is it time? Do we have time? And should we have time to reopen up the country is the biggest question we're all facing today. So, yeah, that's about it for all of today's headlines. Now let's catch you up on what's going on in my life. So after yesterday's podcast, what did I do? I did homework. I took an hour-long nap, much needed nap. Feel fantastic now. After that, I played some CS. I played a game or two about CSGO. Lost both of them because we're not good. Also, I watched The Dirty Dozen. Great movie. I didn't know Jim Brown was in that movie. It was just an odd fit to see. But, it was a good movie. Once again, a lot of those old movies are a lot slower than the movies nowadays. But, yeah, I think today I might watch Lethal Weapon. So after all my schoolwork, I'll go watch that. But yeah, I stayed up late last night. I stayed up about 11:30, and I looked at the weather, and it was going to rain all morning. So I was like, oh, well, obviously I'm not going to wake up and go run. So by the time I wake up, I go upstairs, look outside, and I see a bunch of candles in the yard. And then I'm like, what is that? It's my mother's birthday. So I gave her a card. My neighbors came over, put a bunch of candles in the yard, which is really cool. Like big candles, not little ones. They did that. They gave her a box of cookies. We're getting some steaks tonight, and then we're getting cake delivered in, so that's exciting. Um, Besides that, I got ahead of my homework because I had all this extra free time in the morning. After this podcast, I'm gonna munch down. Then I'm gonna go to my calculus class, and I'm gonna go run, and then we're gonna be eating our steaks, eating good like healthy Americans. Then I'll probably go watch Lethal Weapon, play some more video games all night long because it's the weekend, and just keep enjoying life and then doing the most. I might read. I have to journal after this. I'm sticking to that. I didn't journal last night. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't stay very motivated on that. But I think this is where our sense of community comes together, and we just have to work together to solve our own tasks. I might also open up my PC. It's been running very loud for some reason. I don't know why. Also, I think I'm having a hard drive issue because every time I boot my computer, it like you have to turn it on, and then what happens is the HP logo will pop up, but it won't pop up with the loading, like the loading sign. So I have to turn it off, turn it back on like 3 times, and then it'll come on. So it's the weirdest, oddest thing, but I'm still streaming, I'm still playing PC games, so something's working. It might just be a hard drive issue. Hopefully nothing else, because I mean, I really want to buy a laptop for college and stuff, but I feel like it might be too soon. Plus, I'm still trying to weigh the options. There's so many laptops out there. It's crazy. So, still trying to figure that out. In the meantime, yesterday on Amazon, I bought a new mouse. I've been rocking. Oh, my mouse is wired in. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'll just move the camera. I've been rocking this bad boy. It's a what is this brand? In Adesso. I don't know, some like stock mouse place that you find. It might be a government issue mouse, I don't know. But I used to have a Razer Death Adder, and then there's like a grip on the bottom. The grip started peeling out, so then I was like, oh frick, that sucks. So I don't know. I guess whenever I got out of PC gaming a couple years ago, I might have donated it or gotten rid of it. I can't find it though. I've looked everywhere. So I bought the new Death Adder V2 with like a coupon I got on Honey. I wish I was sponsored by Honey, maybe soon. But yeah, I got that new mouse coming in. It says Wednesday, but will it come in Wednesday? Who knows? Um it could be later, could be sooner, or it could be right on time. But yeah, that's really about it today. Not much else going on in my life. I'm gonna go run because I feel like I have that need to run and work out. It's just I didn't want to run when it was a little schlick outside. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Trevantine. We'll be right back tomorrow with another exciting episode. If you guys are movie fanatics or into movies, let me know, because that's what we're talking about tomorrow. So this is going to be the way it is for a while. Keep washing your hands, and catch you on the north side.